live.
Testing, testing, testing. How's the volume?
It's looking pretty good. I'm just waiting for people to...
Oh yeah, I can hear myself.
Is it loud or...
Nope, it's fine.
Alright, so we got our show match here with... What is this? Clarity Gaming's Mystery against SCA.IMBACoaching from Team Starcraft Ascension here. So, it should be pretty good here. So, okay, we're refs. Alright. Alright, first map is going to be on Daybreak. And we're going to have a TVZ, Mystery being our Zerg player. Both players, from what I understand, are Grandmaster level. And this is a show match for $50, presented by Team Starcraft Ascension. So it's going to be a pretty nice matchup we're going to have here.
A best of what?
I believe it's a best of 7. I might be wrong though because I was just brought in at the last minute here. I think it's
okay.
A best
We're gonna
7.
do my observer view.
Okay.
Okay. So from Team SCA, spawning in the bottom left as Terran, it's King Kong. And in the top right for CGac, it's Mystery, Grandmaster Zerg player. ZVT on Daybreak, old school map from Wings of Liberty.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that this map's even in the map pool for the show match, considering it is not in the map pool anymore. Even though it's a good map, I very much like it, but it's kind of weird that we're not playing maps on our current map pool.
Yeah, Daybreak is actually in every major tournament right now still, which is a little bit odd. Hopefully, maybe in the next 1 or 2 seasons for Pro League, GSL, MLG, etc., they'll eventually take it out. But I believe DreamHack is the next upcoming large tournament in about 2.5 weeks, and that still does have Daybreak as well. So, but in terms of balance, I think this is a fairly okay map for ZVT. Maybe slightly favored towards Zerg, just because it's fairly easy to stop drops, but I think that's more attuned to the fact that Zergs have played this map for so long that they're just more comfortable looking at the minimap and knowing every single path the Terran can actually take.
That's right. And another thing about this map is that in Heart of the Swarm, your normal Reaper expand might not be as effective because there's only one clear ledge that they're going to be able to jump up and down to between the natural and the main base, whereas in the newer maps, you're going to have more than one area for this Reaper to get away. So the Reaper expand not being the best way to open up, in my opinion, on this map.
Yeah, it looks like King Kong actually opened up with a Rax, but he built the supply depot and the Rax very close to his CC. So yeah, as noted, he is going to be building a refinery. It's very, very risky to not wall off if you're going for a no gas expand with a Rax build, especially nowadays against Zerg, who just generally gets speed early on, and that's exactly what Mystery is going to do. And he's reading the situation correctly, actually getting the extractor before he puts down the pool without getting a scout off on the Terran. And this is the perfect build to deal with Reapers early in the game. So we're just going to have to see how many Reapers King Kong wants to make and when he wants to put down that expansion.
Yeah. So we're not seeing anything too cheesy, but like you said, though, we're not having a wall off from our Terran player, which is kind of odd. So who do you think on this map, being Daybreak and with your new Hellbats, your mines, do you think Terran has it better on this map now than they did in Wings of Liberty?
No, like I said earlier, I think this matchup is fairly balanced on Daybreak. Actually, it's pretty fairly balanced in every matchup. There's no real map that attunes itself to certain races. Usually map differences are for very specific all-in strategies towards the early mid-game, maybe even the early game, if it's an extreme cheese, but late game scenarios, every race does have unit combinations that they can do to take advantage of certain spots in the map, so it's really not too big of a deal. And it does look like the Zerg player actually only mined exactly 100 gas for this speed, and he's going to be pulling off. So a very economic beginning, and very good against Reapers, but once to note here, the Rax actually did not produce a single Reaper, so the Terran player is actually completely blind, but luckily for him, producing these first 2 Marines is actually going to be extremely cost-effective. He's going to be able to pick off an Overlord here very early in the game, and that's going to supply block Mystery.
Yeah, but there is another Overlord that went into the base, and he saw that that there were no Reapers on the way. Well, the Overlord who was supposed to be sacrificed ended up not dying, which is unfortunate for Mystery, losing that Overlord and getting supply blocks. He's sending a couple links across the map, kind of poke in a bit, see what's going on with the Terran player, check for the expansion, even though the Overlord did see it. So I'm not seeing anything too outrageous right now from either of our players. So
King Kong actually going into a very early factory, and he's going to be using the early reactor that he used to get a very high Marine count, going up to 6 already thanks to that double production there. And he's going to be switching it off into Hellions right before the 6-minute mark. So even though his worker count's a little bit low, it's 27 drones to 23 SEVs, this is actually a very good build, opening-wise. I mean, his Marine count is higher than the more standard openings if you open CC first, or even no-gas expansions with the Rax. But he's going to be able to produce Hellions at about the time any weird Roach or Baneling all-in would occur. So he's going to have good control over the map, good scouting information, and the Zerg player actually just placed down a Baneling nest, and he's invested into 2 Vespene Geysers. So if he produces nothing but Lings at this point, this might actually be a very economic Baneling bust, and as is, he's producing 16 Lings right now. And it looks like the Terran player has no idea this is coming. He's going to have to really rely on some kind of scouting information, but just as I say that, he produces 2 mines right off the bat and a bunker without even scanning. So this is a very interesting response. I'm not sure how he sniffed this out, but definitely doing everything he can that will hold off Baneling aggression.
well, this might just be because he is making the Hellbats now. I went for the fast army. He's going to go for Hellbat drops. What I'm going to be assuming here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right, but I think this is just to hold off in case there is the Roach pressure, because as you can see, he doesn't have much if he was going for the Hellion or if he was just going straight for mines, but he's going for Hellbats, which leaves him basically, kind of weak when it comes to the all-ins that could be coming.
Now this is a very interesting scan. He actually sees the Zerg player get lair, but it's already 8 minutes into the game. So he did choose to scan the main base, which unfortunately for him did not have the Baneling nest, but I don't think he really needs to know this is coming. So long as he reacts just in time to pop these Marines into this bunker, 2 mines is an extremely dangerous defense against slow Banelings. I mean, the Zerg player would have to basically use Zerglings against both of these mines and hope King Kong doesn't know how to micro the Widow mines. And here comes the first attack, and unfortunately for him, there are 4 Hellbats, and he does see that right off the bat. Will he commit to this? I really don't think he should, and the only thing going for the Zerg player now is he has spotted this King Kong aggression, and unfortunately for King Kong, he's actually going to just back off there and stay at the Xel'Naga Tower, but he is very safe against this Baneling aggression for sure.
So here was the first wave of Banelings coming into the natural here. Already losing 4, coming up onto the bunker. We have first Mind Blast going off, killing all the few of the Banelings, but all these Lings coming right back into the natural mineral line. Hellbat coming into the main base of Reserve player. So it looks like our Terran player is going to be able to hold off the pressure. He's going to be able to return a little to our Zerg player. So looking pretty good for King Kong right now.
This is a really good pull by Mystery, but unfortunately all of his units are clumped, and that was an extremely scary moment, but unfortunately for him, King Kong's units were a little bit blocked off. Hellbats are just so fat. And he actually blocked off the 2 initial shots at the back there that would have basically just killed off all of the drones. And I mean, Queens are excellent against Hellbats, but Lings not so much. He just lost another handful of Lings at that point. And it looks like King Kong has stabilized at his second base, and the Hellbat drop is still commencing. 39 drones to 31, but the Zerg does have a third base, and King Kong doesn't know that it's actually there yet.
I'm starting to think that Hellbat drop didn't actually do as much as it should have. He could have went for the drones. He could have, lifted off and kept going, but instead he kept trying to go for those queens. He had them up on the ram, killing Zerglings. He's just trading, army for army at that point. He's forcing units. He's forcing Zerglings from our Zerg player, but he needed to get those drones to really pull ahead from that pressure because he did lose quite a bit of SCVs.
And Mystery finally teching up to lair right now. 11 minutes. He actually ended up canceling the lair tech in order to continue with that Baneling aggression. So basically only researching that layer to try to trick his opponent into thinking that he wasn't going to be doing an all-in in the early game. But fortunately for King Kong, everything he did in the early game was basically the perfect meta against his Zerg opponent, and Mystery already knows this. Good player sense, and GG's out nice and early.
Alright, so it was a pretty nice first game from our Terran player, holding off a good all-in from our Zerg player Mystery from Clarity Gaming. So I think we're gonna have a good series here. Whether or not it's best of 7 or best of 9, I'll have to ask that right now. And in the meantime, I'm going to just play some music while we're waiting for...
Ever since I opened your stream, my browser has been extremely laggy. It's like watching a 4-year-old crawl around. Ridiculous. You know what I'm realizing? You know how they have mouse pads of different sizes? They have a little tiny mouse pad, usually for StarCraft players, and then the larger ones for FPS, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they just make a desk that's just a giant mouse pad?
I think...
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that'd be really something.
I mean, it'd be flat. You could put your speakers, your monitor...
But how flimsy would it be? Because what they're making out of these mouse pads out of aren't exactly sturdy material. You'd have yourself...
Oh, I guess it would depend on which mouse pad you use, but either or it would still work.
Okay, so what is the best of 7 series?
I have been promoted to lobby host. Oh, that's a bad idea.
Make sure we're spectators. Or refs. Alright, so game number 2, just starting on Belshir Vestige. Right now our Terran player is 1 up on our Zerg player Mystery from Clarity Gaming. To be honest, as a Terran player, I have to say I like Belshir Vestige. I mean, it's a little harder to take your third, but I really don't mind it that much.
Spawning in the bottom right, he's down 0-1 in this best of 7 series for $50 from Team CGAC. It is Mystery. And his opponent, who's up 1-0 from Team SCA, King Kong, playing as the Red Terran. This was the map pick of the Zerg.
Yes,
ended up picking Belshire Vestige.
This map, from a Terran perspective, I think, against Zerg isn't exactly what you would want. I mean, your third is a little harder to obtain and protect because you have to get your units over there, and there are 2 ways into your natural. You know, even 3 if they're coming from your third. So it's a little harder to protect that third unless you get that wall off. If you wall off along the rocks at the third base of the... So it's kind of... I'm not sure what I'm going to say because our Zerg player here showed that he went for that early aggression or that kind of all-in-ish play he did last game. Didn't work out too well against King Kong, who opened with a Hellbat pressure. So, are we going to see similar play from King Kong? That barracks blocking off that refinery kind of oddly, so...
Yeah, a little bit of an odd placement for the barracks, but luckily for him, barracks can be lifted. But he did not choose to wall off once again, so... Most likely this is going to be a Reaper expanded. The Zerg player just doing the very standard 15 hatch opening. We'll have to see if he counters it by going for the extractor before he puts down that pool, because last game that was excellent play against refinery openings. And once again, King Kong is actually going to open up refinery, but we did see him last game just go straight to the reactor production just to get that marine count nice and high compared to normal no-gas expansions. And once again, Mystery is actually putting down that extractor. And one thing to note, This build that King Kong is doing actually doesn't have Reapers, and even though the Marine count might be very high, there is a small window of cheese that the Zerg player can do, opening up a very early extractor. If he just pumps a ridiculous number of lings, especially on a map such as this, if the Terran player doesn't scout in the early game like he did in the last game, it's very easy to get a surround on that bunker, and even if you have 6 or 7 Marines, it's pretty much just a game over. It's a very odd, vulnerable time for the Terran player.
Yeah, that's right. So, do you prefer the Reaper Expand as Terran? Like because they're so much easier to get now, although they do a lot less damage to like what they used to be. Do you prefer the Reaper Expand, or would you prefer this kind of opening for my Terran player with this, get that Marine count up and go right into a macro-ish build, or even into like an earlier factory build?
It's ironic because this exact opening is done quite a bit in the high-level Terran play, but against Protoss. Very Flash-esque kind of an opening. And the reason why this is good is it allows you to keep that Marine count really high while getting a very early upgrade lead just because of the gas investment. But King Kong seems like he wants to opt to do this into straight Reaper drops, which is something Innovation does, but he's done it off of the CC first openings, which is a little bit more economical. So I'm not too sure the timings on this, but most likely from the last game, those 2 medevacs will be filled with reactors if that's what he wants to do. With Hellbats, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Also, this map is also, I think it's very nice for drop play because you have your Zerg's going to be all over the place between either their 3rd or 4th or wherever. They're going to have to get all over the place. There's just so much open space for your Hellbats to get away, to evade in, and a Zerg player is getting some good Overlord placements, so you can check for those drops. You might even be expecting them.
King Kong following it up with the exact same opening as he did last game. Look for him to put down a bunker just in case because he does enjoy playing extremely blind. Fortunately for him, he did take the most forwards on Naga Tower for him, thanks to these 2 Marines. And the Zerg player does know that he does have an extremely high Marine count, but hasn't really set up a wall in the front of his base. So I'm wondering if Mystery is going to do the same aggression because he is putting down this second extractor timing exactly at the same time that he did last game. And right about at this time, he started producing nothing but lings. But there is no Baneling nest, so probably just his style of play. Going into a 3rd base now, accidentally bringing down 2 drones. And yes, the Terran player King Kong is opening exactly the same way. Just gearing up with a lot of Marines to hold off early aggression, and then pumping 2 mines as fast as he can before he goes into the Hellbat drops, just to be safe from possible Baneling or Roach all-ins.
I'd say that is the smarter move. Instead of going straight into the Hellbat, going for those 2 mines is you need those mines to hold off any kind of Zerg pressure because they are going to hold off lings, they're going to hold off banelings, and even you're going to hurt the roaches if they come in with 7 to 9 roaches. Yeah, but our Terran player, has he even thrown down his bunker yet? I don't think he has. Whether or not he'd be expecting that kind of pressure again.
And it looks like Mystery has scouted everything in the Terran's base. He absolutely knows that this is going to be the same build from last game, following it up with 2 Hellbats from the double reactor factory here. And actually, King Kong is going to mix it up because he knows that the Zerg player is actually not being aggressive this game. He's going to put down a 3rd, and he's going to move out with a pretty sizable force here. And one thing to note, the Zerg player does not have a Baneling nest down, so there is a possibility that King Kong's attack does a lot of damage. 2 Hellbats are kind of lagging behind, but if these 2 are with his army right now, plus the addition of the mines, this is going to be a very hard attack to hold off with just pure lings, especially because the upgrades are not finished yet.
16 lings are just coming out of production now against a small army. Even if our Terran player does drop those mines perfectly, they're probably going to detonate on this queen right here, or even not, but there's a lot of lings there and 2 queens to soak those mine damage, and even those mines might do the collateral damage. Good pickup by our Terran. Oh, and he loses the medevac full of Marines. That was not worth it at all. Not doing any damage. In fact, he killed a queen.
It is really unfortunate that King Kong's units were actually not all with him. I feel that if he had 4 Hellbats there's absolutely no way the Zerg could have overcome that with just purely lings, especially because every unit on the map right now is at 0-0 upgrades, but as is, Mystery does hold that off fairly well, and he actually ended up scouting the 3rd base, and there were no units here to kind of stop these 2 lings from killing off that SCV while it was producing the rack. So a little bit of a mistake there, but he is going to be sending his entire force towards that location, and Once again, Mystery getting very lucky with these timings, scouting the Hellbat drops before they even reach his base. And I think he's going to be just fine. King Kong sending over a ton of units, and about half of this army is designed to kill nothing but Lings.
And our Zerg player is actually following this up with a Spire, which is a fantastic choice in my opinion, because our Terran player is just now finishing his stim, going into his Marine production, but he's still making Hellbats to go against this Ling pressure. If he can get out a good Muta count, he could do a lot of damage before our Terran player hits that critical Marine count to hold off the Muta and whatever pressure might come from the front.
It looks like Mystery is just going into super macro mode right now, 62 drones to 43 SEVs. And Mutas actually is a fairly good composition against a very heavy Hellbat army. All you really need to do is try to get those Baneling hits on top of the Marines. And one thing to note right now, the production of King Kong actually is just underway with double reactor on the additional 2 Raxes. So he's actually only producing off of 3 Raxes right now. Finally adding those additional Raxes. He's on 3 base and only producing from 3 Raxes. That means he's not really going to have that many Marines out on the map. So if this attack does not do enough damage right now, once those Mutas come out, he's basically going to be countered completely in army composition.
And actually, there's nothing at his third to protect the command center. There's no Marines in that bunker, which was a very poor choice by him. And here comes the engage. A lot of Banelings, no splits at all, and they're all just going to die to Banelings.
That was very surprising. I did not think that Hellbats would actually die, even if they were surrounded. But I guess he did get a perfect hit, just kind of like the same thing if you have enough Banelings to kill a bunch of Thors. But he is going into mass Marine production. The additional 3 Raxes are about to finish, and he's going back into building Widow Mines. So everything the Terran is making right now is a good counter against Mutaling Bling. But there is going to be this tiny window that Mystery does have, because he did retain his entire army. He has 53 Lings on the map with 9 Mutas in production, and he has almost 2-2 on his melee upgrades. So I feel like once I'm looking at King Kong's production right now, he has no turrets anywhere else on the map. If he basically splits his Lings and his Mutas in the perfect locations, he should be able to deny or possibly do enough economic damage to give him a significant lead going into his 4th base and going into his infestation pit.
Right, just like you said, his 4th base is just now being established. The hatchery is down. So we're gonna. Did he reveal those Mutas to our Terran player already? Did he send those in?
Yes.
I didn't see. Okay, so he did send in the Mutas. So we're gonna see our Terran, like you said, building up his production now, and his 2-2 are just now starting. His +2 attack is halfway done, but our Zerg player is gonna get ahead on the base count, which is what he needs right now. And our Terran player doesn't have that much to hold off any kind of pressure. He's got a couple Marines and a couple Medivacs and a few mines, but there's no more Hellbats. You need those Hellbats to counter all these Lings. Like you said, there were a lot of Lings on the field right now. Like you said, 65 Lings now.
I think King Kong is going to be just fine going into the composition that he's making. Heavy Marine count with Widow Mines, and the only thing that's really odd here is his starport has not actually been producing anything, and it still does not have a reactor on it. So his medevac count is going to be extremely stifled, and there's really no reason for him to delay that. He has 3 base economy right now, 59 SCVs, a nice little bank going, and 152 supply, which is extremely high for Terran. But you know what? He's just going to move out right now and see what he can do. But unfortunately for him, Mystery's creep has basically extended half the map right now, and he's already been seen, and a huge flank is going to be geared up right now. The Zerg player knows exactly where the mines have been detonated. He's going to try to go for a little bait there. Backs off a little bit too early, and fortunately for him, King Kong's mines end up hitting a bunch of larvae instead. And here comes the entire army of the Zerg, 169 supply to 155. But it looks like Mystery is just going to let the hatch go down, and he does end up losing his 4th base, but immediately builds one on the right side of the map. And it looks like he's just going to sacrifice this location because King Kong has already pre-split and pre-placed his mines, but he definitely needs to gear up for a huge defense if King Kong decides to push into his 3rd base.
That's right. Mines moved up into 3rd base now alone, exposed. Zerg army coming up on all these Marines. All those Baneling good splits from our Terran player, but all these Marines are going to get taken out. Muta's coming in, taking out the Medivacs who are trying to speed away with dear life. Some random SCV on the side there, being a hero. Or trying to be.
A very cost-effective fight. 7,000 units lost compared to just 5,900 of the Zerg player. And he's already going into Ultralist tech Unfortunately for him, his fourth base was killed, so he doesn't have 4 base economy, which is really what you want to have in terms of gas, just to kind of pump out a good number of Ultralisks and possibly secondary to that Infestors. But I don't think he's really going to have to need that right now. The Terran has not taken his fourth, and he's actually going to be aggressive with 136 supply. So if the Zerg player is on top of his vision, which is already given to him from the creep, he should be able to save this base. And here come the Marines. They have already pre-stimmed, kill off a little bit of the Lings. And if he targets that hatchery, I don't know if it's going to survive. The Marines are 2-2 right now, but Mystery does get there in time. And at the exact same time, Mystery is trying to sneak his mutas into the main base, which have a few turrets, but not at the correct locations. And here comes King Kong trying to hit the 30s, trying to do as much as he can while he tries to solidify his fourth base location. And he's going to be able to get into position, but there just isn't too many units here, just a handful of Marines and just 5 mines. Here comes the huge engagement, a nice Widow Mine hit, but unfortunately for him, he has no Marines to back this army up with.
Yeah, good job by Zerg player holding off all the aggression, going into the Ultralist. 3-3 on the way. Crackling upgrade is coming, and the plus and the additional armor for our Ultralisk. He's not exactly on the 4-base economy. He needs to take those two additional gases at his fourth base because it's what he needs to maintain this army composition for remaxability.
And it looks like King Kong knows that that failed little piece of aggression there really put him way behind. Not even microing his mules, accidentally misplacing them just to be sitting here, which isn't really going to hurt him too much because what he's really lacking right now is gas, and he still hasn't taken the additional gas at his original 3rd base location. 182 supply to 138, and the Zerg player right now is basically just solidifying his economy, 69 drones to 65 SEVs, but unfortunately for King Kong, he's literally only on about 2.5 bases right now, barely mining from these two, and just now taking the additional refineries.
Looks like there's some aggression. Our Zerg's fourth, a decent drop, killing off a few drones, but our Zerg player is going to catch up with these with his Mutalisks. He's going to take out the Medivacs. And like you said, our Terran doesn't have the gas count to keep replacing these Medivacs and maintain a mine-efficient army, because right now he's going back into his Hellbat Marauder composition. He's getting Marauders now. Good run by into the 3rd base of our Terran player, losing the bunker, and he's probably going to lose a couple more SCVs. But he just doesn't have the gas to keep up with the Marauder count and Medivacs, and he keeps throwing them away.
This is actually a very good time for Mystery to hit that 4th base. The majority of King Kong's army is actually stuck in the 2nd base here, and I think he just realized that, has vision of them with the Marines, but he's just going to sit in the middle of the map and build Banelings. I think he's just going to gear up for one huge attack, and if those Banelings get a nice hit on that Bioforce behind the Hellbats definitely have a very hard time fending off against upgraded Ultralisks, which are now 3-5 in upgrades. Here comes the Force of Mystery. Excellent choice by King Kong. Will he be able to pre-stim in this location? No, the Zerg player is going to back off, which gives him an open window to deny the 4th and most important base of King Kong, but doesn't look like he's fully aware of the positioning of the Terran army, and he's just going to be super safe right now. He doesn't want to accidentally walk into a huge Widow Mine trap.
Yeah, but as you say that, I noticed that our Terran player doesn't even have Widow Mines, and he is pre-splitting with a patrol, and here comes the engagement. Ultralisk coming in, good Baneling hits, and all the Terran units are cloned up at the 3rd ramp. Queen's pushed up with the Ultralisk, getting good transfuses off, and he just busted into the natural and the 3rd of our Terran player.
And it looks like King Kong has dropped to 134 supply, and the bank of the Zerg player is really putting into effect right now. 38 Lings, 4 Ultralisks, all melee upgrades full at this point. 196 supply, and he has basically solidified this game. He has creep spread all the way to the front of the Terran's base. That's going to make his reinforcements extremely quick right now. And even though he hasn't killed off the last and most important base of King Kong, I don't think it's really going to matter. He has 3 fully upgraded Ultralisks hitting this base. He has a ton of upgraded Lings hitting the base of the 3rd of King Kong. And there is absolutely nothing the Terran player can do at this point. 196 supply to 85. And here comes the last bunch of streamed out Lings. And I think he's just going to GG after this one.
Yeah, I have to say, good job by our Zerg player holding on from that early pressure from our Terran player and really showing us that he is not, he's still in this. I mean, one loss after showing us a pretty inadequate all-in, not really doing much, and showing us a great game right afterwards. And the creep spread is just coming up into the national base and the 3rd. And it even sees the 4th base at this point, but our Terran player is still holding on, or attempting to hold on, I should say, as their player just streams more and more units into the base. I'm expecting a GG anytime now, though.
This just represents how choke points are against Ultralisks. Ultralisks really rely on that fungal to get that nice surface area to do as much splash damage as they possibly can against the Bile, but just putting it into a choke, it's even difficult for a 182 supply army to fight into 74, and GG is finally called, and the series is tied 1-1.
Yep, tied 1-1, and that was a very good game in my opinion. I really enjoyed watching that one right there. So we are at 1-1. In your honest opinion, who do you think is the more favored to win right now? Or who do you think? The Zerg player?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna have to, we'll see how this ends up. For $50, we're waiting on the next map choice from our Terran player. I'll just turn on a little bit of music here. How have you been?
Good. Both players are ready.
Okay, both players are ready. We're starting up on Whirlwind. Huge map.
This is a very interesting map pick if it was picked by the Terran, but spawning here in the bottom right. Just lost the last game, but the series is still tied 1-1 from Team SCA. It is King Kong. And adjacent to him, from Team CGac, it is Mystery, who played a pretty flawless macro game against Terran. Pretty much everything you want to do, transitioning nicely into Tier 3 with extreme emphasis on creep spread and upgrades into Ultralisks and Infestors. And it really looked like King Kong didn't have a good response. His unit composition was a little bit sloppy. The transition wasn't really perfect into the mid-game, but I think the most important part was the production. Sitting on 3 Raxes while the 3rd base was basically mining with mules and I think a little over 55 SCVs at that point, and still just producing off of basically 3 Raxes. And I think the 2 additional Raxes were completely naked until about the 10-minute mark. So there's really no secret to why he had such trouble with the overwhelming number of Lings and Banelings, especially because he did a few attacks with primarily Hellbats and still ended up losing to just Lings and Banelings. And whenever that happens, you really have to question yourself, is my production really up to par if I'm losing because of just sheer unit count?
Well, then again, a few of those engagements from our Terran player, he didn't even split in a few of them, and he just got a full surround, and he ended up losing all of his units, you know, to either Banelings or whatever, and even losing an entire medevac of Marines, you know, because he let it get sniped by the Queens ahead of time. So you have to question. He also has to question, you know, is his micro up to par against our Zerg player, who did play a flawless game against him.
And it looks like King Kong is opting to go for a 14 CC and a 15 Rax. It's going to stop his SCV production just for a second, but we'll have to see how early he wants to end up getting that first reactor. Very rare to see 2 Rax follow-ups when going into CC first nowadays. Just kind of stifles your ability to tech into the new units, and especially, obviously, the new medevacs, which is so good. And he's actually going to get it at 17, so very, very standard opening, and it looks like he's gearing up to get a second refinery, so once again, really favoring these heavy gas openings, and because of the lack of basically importance and significance of the Banshee nowadays, I'm basically assuming he's going to either go straight into mech or the exact same Hellbat drop style that he did last game.
Yeah, and as we saw, the Hellbat drops haven't been very successful for him, so he kind of has to wonder, is it worth going into? I mean, of course, if he gets a good drop off, he kills a few lings or kills a few drones. But our Zerg player kind of knows by now it's going to be coming. He's going to be looking for it. Bunker does go down this time, unlike last game where there was no bunker at the natural. And we're just going to have to see how our Terran player plays it out.
Zerg player opening the exact same style as he did, but the only thing he's changing up right now is he actually did not pull workers off of the extractor, so we'll have to see what type of aggression he wants to do early on. And it's going to end up being a Roach Warren. And if his opponent goes straight to Hellbats, or even if he goes into Banshee, there is going to be this small window in which there's absolutely no production. And look at this, he's going into double factory right now. And I'm assuming the other gas deposit is going to be placed onto the Barrack add-on, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So there's going to be a huge window in which King Kong cannot produce a single unit onto the field. And judging by the timing of this Roach Warren, it looks like he's going to have this window where he can actually do a lot of damage, especially because the only sense of defense right now only has one Marine in it, and that's really not a lot of DPS at all.
Yeah, but this SCV going to come in here, and he does see the Roach Warren, so he's going to know that this pressure is coming. 6 roaches on the way, and the 2 factories just now finishing, and the same with that reactor. Are we going to see mines or Hellions coming from it, though? Because he needs the units right now to be able to hold this off.
Absolutely has to build his mine right now. Unfortunately for him, he does not have an armory, so he has no way of building Hellbats. But if he can get a few mines right now and somehow hold off this wall with mass repair, he should be just fine. But unfortunately for him, Mystery does have speed on his lings, so he's going to be able to follow this up with a lot of lings. And if he's able to get through here, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. King Kong, that is. And here comes the first early aggression. I don't think King Kong has spotted that yet. But Mystery has a nice little vision, thanks to this Overlord, on exactly what's going on at this base. Second bunker being built, but just as a decoy. And alright, here comes the engagement. Mystery goes up with only 3 roaches, and it looks like he's going to be just fine. Not enough DPS as is to really punish the Terran for not having enough Marines right now. The first Widow Mine goes off, the second Widow Mine goes off on just 1 Ling, and he only has 1 more Widow Mine, and he's in a lot of trouble if this one doesn't hit a lot of units. And the roaches are completely untouched right now. He has a lot of time before those Widow Mines are active, and they're extremely stationary right now. Here comes another Widow Mine. Will they get a lot of hits? They do finally take off enough units to be worthwhile, but the roaches are still completely untouched. King Kong desperately trying to pump out whatever he can to counter roaches. He already has 1 Marauder right now. 2 more Widow Mines pop. Will they be able to burrow in time? And it looks like they're going to get 2 nice hits right now, and that's going to be able to hold off the push. But behind this, Mystery has droned up to 37 drones. He has gotten his 3rd base, and the Terran opponent only has 18 workers left.
And throughout all of that pressure that we just saw, I just have to say that our Terran player wasn't even repairing the 2nd bunker, which had a Marauder in it. He wasn't even repairing it, so it was basically dead. So it was kind of a flaw or a miss by him. He could have bought himself a little more time if those SUs were actually repairing. And he has a ton of mines now, and just two Marauders. So I don't see why he's going to go out with this kind of pressure, because, in my opinion, it doesn't look like it's going to do that much. He has a lot of mines and a couple Marauders, but is it going to do anything? Links coming into the main, they're coming in and they're checking everything. You're going to see that there are 2 racks and 2 factories, but he is upgrading stim and going into that bio composition like he's been favoring. So our Zerg player does know he can stop the roach production. He can go right back into Lings, or even Ling Bing. His lair is just now completing, or soon to be completed. And I wonder if he's going to go into mutas again, is what I'm wondering right now.
King Kong moving out with only 30 SCVs behind it. The majority of his army is actually just Widow Mines, which is a little bit funny to see. A ton of them end up going off, and all the units of King Kong besides the mines are now dead. And he has reached layer tech, so if he does manage to build an Overseer, he is going to be able to kill this off, and as his King Kong is going to have to retreat, just trying to make something happen, because he knows he's very behind, and he knows that he has to do something with the overproduction of mines that he did make. But he does have a medevac out right now, so that's going to give him a little bit of versatility on what he wants to do. And it looks like Mystery is going straight into that Spire tech, getting the double upgrades on melee and armor, just like he did in the last game. And this transition is probably for the best. Very, very easy to take advantage of a Terran player behind economically with Muta opening, especially if you follow it up with Lings and Banelings. And wow, unfortunately for him, if Mystery was paying attention, he actually just saw that medevac move straight out.
He had the Overlord. He had it click, so I'm pretty sure he did see it. He's moving. Is he moving Queens into position? Yes, he is moving his army over there. I don't think these mines are going to do anything. I don't think they're going to have the chance to burrow. Overseer is
King
on the
Kong
way.
just basically trying to make the best out of a really bad situation. It looked like from the get-go that if Mystery did choose to do something extremely aggressive, then the double gas opening straight off of a CC first was definitely going to have trouble. And considering he wanted to go into mech, it was very smart of him to produce that early Marauder. Just kind of rush it out as fast as you can, especially because he did scout the Roach Warren, and basically Mines was the only thing he could have produced that would have done anything to the Roaches at all. So, tried to make the best of the situation. Unfortunately for him, he was basically countered in terms of build order. And look at this, actually trying to sneak an expansion. So King Kong, even though he's extremely behind this game, he really, really knows what he has to do or what he has to do in order to risk possibly somehow coming back into this game.
Yeah, he is going for that hidden expansion. Our Zerg player is yet to take his fourth at the 13-minute mark. How many mutas are popping? I didn't exactly get to see, maybe 4 or 5, but our Terran player is going to move out to the middle of the map. He's going to take the tower. Whether or not he's going to pull back these mutas is another question.
And it looks like the mutas are going to jet straight for the second base, which fortunately for King Kong already has a turret, but the majority of his army is actually gearing up to deny one of the bases of the Zerg player. But thanks to this beautiful creep spread, I don't think he's going to be able to attack from the middle side, and rightfully so. He's going to try to edge his way into the deep corners of the third base, but unfortunately Mystery is already there, and he's going to have a huge trouble if he loses this army. And here comes a lot of Lings and Banelings with a little bit of Roach support, and the mines are actually going to be baited onto the units of King Kong, and he loses about a third of his army, and here comes the remaining force of the Zerg player. Mutalisks, Zerglings, Banelings, absolutely everywhere. He has 2 Overseers here. The mines are completely cleaned up, and he basically retained his entire army. 121 supply to 77, 60 workers to just 45 SCVs, and barely getting this base up to mine.
Yeah, very unfortunate that Terran player is trying to make something happen, like you said. His third base is complete, but he can't transfer SCVs up there, otherwise he'll risk them being found. Our Zerg player does see that this drop is coming in full of Marines. Mutas are coming in now to try and intercept it, and he is going to come over and just drop all of its load to try and do something, maybe kill a Mutalisk or something, but that drop rendered useless.
Terran player at 1-1 upgrades, just starting 2-2, and the Zerg player basically with a slight economic lead. Sorry, a very slight upgrade lead, but I don't think that's going to matter this game. 141 supply to just 93, and the Terran player essentially is only mining off of this ninja base because he's investing all of his meals into that base location, adding on his additional refineries, really struggling to balance his economy right now between gas and minerals, at about 600 minerals and just barely 150 gas, but still producing the very standard army composition that the Terran is really used to having when he's on par with supply with the Zerg at this stage. And unfortunately for him, that is not the case, and Mystery actually just going into standard play, taking his lead one step at a time, getting his 4th base, and going to Hive at the same time.
But like you were saying, our Terran player is up to 3 base to Zerg's 3 base, just now getting onto his 4th. With this mine composition, though, once the Zerg player hits that critical mass of Mutalisks, it's not going to matter that much that he has those mines, because I doubt that our Zerg player, from what we've been seeing, is going to clump them up enough for these mines to kill them. So once he gets that up, I get the feeling that he's going to need a lot more than just mines and Marines to hold off what's coming.
Looks like King Kong has decided to add in a few tanks to his army composition, just trying to make use of that second factory that he built initially. But 165 supply to 132, King Kong still struggling to try to pump out more and more units. Just starting his +3 upgrades right now, so he's doing fairly well in that regard, but the Zerg player has reached Hive Tech and is going for a 5th base back into that Infestor Ultralisk composition, and just kind of taking his time in setting up static defense all around his bases, just to be sure that no drops can kind of catch him off surprise.
Yeah, and our Terran player is going to move out again, but I don't think this is the right decision. I think he needs to come back, and he needs to macro. Here comes the engager. The mines are out of place. They don't have the speed burrow, and all those banelings. His whole army is decimated. he loses everything, just all these mines as well. And I think that just ended the game for him. Or close enough. That was huge right there.
One huge mine hit onto the Mutalisks of Mystery, but he's actually transitioning into a purely ground force right now, so he's not going to mine too much. Predetermined scan there, just assuming that a Ling was going to be burrowed, but he has been mining fairly well off of this base, just pumping all of his mules all the way into this ninja base, but ooh, it looks like Mystery is actually going to be sending Lings towards this location. I think he feels that the amount of units that the Terran player has been able to produce doesn't really add up to how many bases he should be on, and that is exactly what's going to happen. Mystery is going to end up scouting this, but he's still ahead, 181 supply to 119, so does it even matter? A huge fungal goes down. No Widow Mines, nothing but tanks, which are basically just going to go down right at the start of the fight. 184 supply to 96. GG is called, and Mystery is now up 2-1 in this best-of-7 series.
Good job by our third player, like we were seeing. And something I wanted to know, but that last engagement was just happening, is that he didn't even scout the hidden base at the top right. He sent the Ling up there, but didn't see it, which would have helped the Terran if he wasn't just so far behind from that early pressure and just from repeated mistakes or repeated problems ended up happening. It looks like our Terran player is going to go ahead and pick Xera's Prime, which is another odd choice because as a Terran player I can't say I like this map at all. Oh, not even in the map pool, so we're going to have to go back in and find another one.
All right, back.
Yep.
The heck? Didn't join. What is this?
Were you invited to a lobby? I haven't gotten into yet. So while we're just waiting, I just want to let you guys know that it is the casters right now is myself, SC2 Brad. You can follow me here on the stream, and we have Regret. And if he wants to, he can post whatever he wants in the stream. You should go follow him, either Twitter, streaming, whatever. It just makes you support us. Newkirk Precinct, chosen by our Terran player. Interesting. So the score right now is 1-2 in favor of our reserve player, Mystery from Clarity Gaming Academy, who has showed us two very solid games against our Terran player from SCA.
Spawning in the bottom right, he's down 2-1 in this best-of-7 series. From Team SCA, it is King Kong. And from Team CGAC, up 2-1, playing two very standard, very solid macro games to go up 2-1. It's Mystery. This map is extremely large. Even the air distance is just absolutely ridiculous. And unfortunately for the Terran, one of his medevacs actually has to end up going into Narnia if it wants to kind of sneak its way past into another base location. So fairly good to go mutas, and I think Mystery has basically done nothing but transition into mutas when he's going into layer tech. So Assuming that he's going to do that, this is probably a little bit more favored towards the Zerg, especially because it's so difficult to defend all three of these natural base selections from the Terran, going up to just 3 bases. So much air room and air space that the Miras can just kind of ninja their way around without taking any significant damage so long as they are microed correctly.
Mm-hmm. So once again, our Terran player is showing us he's not going to make the wall. I don't know what he has against it. I don't think that they're even going for the wall. I don't think it really matter. You know, it doesn't delay you. It doesn't delay the depot. It's on par all the time. You rally an SCV over there. I don't understand why he doesn't go for that wall. But something to note is he hasn't made a barracks or a refinery yet. I think he's going to open with the CC first.
It looks like Mystery has gone hatch first on all 3 games. Look for him to put down that extractor. Before he puts down that pool, he seems to really enjoy that opening, and so far definitely has not been punished for it. The only thing King Kong can do to kind of throw him off guard into building the pool first is to throw a proxy racks here and there, but he's not going to opt to do that, going for a very macro-heavy build, and 14 CC into a 15 racks, most likely going into a 17 refinery just as normal. We're really going to have to see if he places down that second refinery as quickly as he did in the second game. In the third game, actually.
Now, whether or not this Overlord is going to come in right away and just do some scouting is kind of what I'm wondering. It looks like he is going to send in right away. He's going to see, if he sees that barracks, he's going to see it's not done yet like it should be at this point. He can assume he is going for a CC first, but it looks like he's just going to take it back and not risk getting supply blocked this early as he should, be concerned about.
Looks like King Kong actually gearing up for the double refinery build. Very, very old school style off of a CC opening, getting the 2 refineries at the same time. Used to be into Banshee, but I guess nowadays it's just into Hellbat styles, or possibly into 2 factories like it did the previous game. And I'm interested to see whether the Zerg player will just do the same aggression that basically just flat out won him the game, but this time he's opting to pull off of gas. And that is because he doesn't really know what's going on in the Terran's base right now. Did not send a drone scout. Building his first additional lings right now, which he might try to sneak into King Kong's base. And there's actually no unit out on the field except for this Marine to try to deny the Overlord scanning. So I do feel like he's going to go into the double factory, and he's actually pooling up 200 gas instead of building them one at a time. So very interesting choice of production facilities here. But because he's pulling this much, definitely look for him to drop down 2 factories at the same time. And here comes 2 SCVs, here comes the first, and there comes the second. So 2 factory opening off of CC, something you don't see too often. And the Zerg player just macroing as much as he possibly can, and once this Ling scouts that the CC, no, I don't actually think he can make it there, so change that thought. And King Kong scouting for the very first time here, and speed I don't think will finish in time, so he's going to be able to see the front of the Zerg's base, but what will that really show him? Not too much at all. And it looks like he's opted to go and scout the Zerg's third location just to make sure the Zerg didn't open 3 CC before pool. It's very difficult for a Terran to kind of punish that if you do open CC first, and it looks like he's going to opt to only build 1 add-on right now, building a Hellion off of 1 factory, and possibly 3 Hellions at a time. That would be the only logical thing to do here. And it looks like the Zerg player has taken his third base location in a very forward position, and yes, it's going to be mass Hellion production, going straight into starport. So no refinery, 2 factories with 3 Hellions being produced at a time, most likely going to be a Hellion drop, which you don't really see too often nowadays, just because those Hellbats are so detrimental if they're actually dropped and the Zerg player's not looking. So quickly can they actually just kill everything thanks to that medevac boost. And look at this, actually getting blue flame, something we really don't see at all anymore either. Even if Terran players do go into mech, usually it's more emphasis built onto the Hellbat production and the Hellbat upgrades rather than getting blue flame on the mass Hellion production. And look at this, he's actually still on 2 base economy with just 2 gas and hasn't even gotten layer tech, but is building 6 roaches. So I feel like he's going to be extremely defensive with this. Maybe possibly predicting Hellbat drops, which is basically what this build is designed to counter. But it's just going to be Hellions with blue flame straight into tank production. Definitely going to be mech coming out from the Terran player. And definitely shouldn't be attacking this hatch. He's going to be able to scout these roaches, so he knows it's going to be very difficult to make these Hellions work. But if that Hellion count gets high enough, especially because the Zerg player is producing 10 Lings, very interesting choice here. He's going to have to be so careful. King Kong losing off one Hellion, a little bit sloppy there, did not even get the creep to him. And look at this, King Kong actually going into an 8-minute, 40-second Banshee. So very heavy investment into everything mech. But no Hellbats yet. And no armories, so... Not really used to seeing this old school style back into Heart of the Swarm, but... We'll have to see how he wants to make it work, and how the Zerg wants to respond to it once he hits layer tech.
Like you said, with these roaches on the field, his Hellions aren't going to be able to do much. He's attempting to keep map vision. He's trying his best, but with these roaches out, these Hellions aren't doing much. It's just another way for him to dump his minerals. He's got a Viking going around trying to snipe overlords. He needs to get a good run by and get a good amount of drones or something. Otherwise, these Hellions really have no purpose but to keep the Zerg contained while he gets on that three base economy and get into this mech composition.
Excellent job here by Mystery. Unfortunately for King Kong, the base that he did choose to go to did have the least number of drones. But he does have a Banshee out, so this is going to give him a nice map control in the middle of the game. Just until the Spire. Wow, Spire actually being placed down by Mystery, so he's going back into Muta production. And I think he knows this is full out mech. I mean, he did see a ton of Hellions, he did see Blue Flame, he did see the Banshee, and he even saw a random Viking killing off his overlords, so... I'm curious to see if this is just kind of a predetermined response just because he's comfortable playing mutas in all matches, or if he's actually just doing this because he wants to actually overwhelm his opponent with an overproduction of Mutalisks, which actually can work. Because, once again, this is really odd. There is no... I just want to make sure before I state this, because this would be really strange. Yeah, there is absolutely no armory, so he's actually just going straight into bio. Wow, this is a really weird build order. Actually, I think I saw this done by the Muslim once, but this is a very old school Wings of Liberty strategy, and the only reason he did this was because he wanted to turtle on 3 bases, or 4, and get that tank production really, really high, just because Marines are obviously easier and faster to build.
But here's a shock for our Zerg player. He sends in this Overseer. He's going to see that he's going into his bio again, where he's invested into these roaches to stop the Hellions. And I'm pretty sure he assumed it was mech, like you said. But now he's going to have to transition back into Zergling, Baneling, and the Mutalisks. The Spire just not finishing, with 4 Mutalisks on the way at the moment.
And King Kong trying to make the best of what he can with the Blue Flame Hellions that were left over. But Mystery has actually just scouted everything. And the Overseer is still sitting on top of the majority of his forces. But looking at the economy now, it's very odd to see the Terran player had 136 supply to 114. Especially because he ended up opening this game with 2 factories. And he didn't really do too much damage. 3 kills on workers overall. Investing into double factory Blue Flame Hellions. So... really was assuming that the Zerg player would be in a little bit of an economic lead right now, but 152 supply now to 120 is a very, very odd number and very uncomfortable position for Mystery to be in.
And these Mutalisks going to come in and try and do a little bit of poking, and he's going to be met by 2 missile turrets. He's going to lose on Mutalisk. Hive is on the way at 13 minutes. And our Zerg player is getting up on his 4 bases now. I don't understand why he took that 4th base in particular. We could have took the northern one of his natural. And our turn player is moving down now with a good Marine tank, medevac push. And I don't see any Banelings at all for our Zerg player yet. So
it looks like King Kong is going to be moving out with 176 supply against only 141 of the Zerg player, who has opted to go into Hive Tech at possibly the worst time. 12 Banelings being morphed. They do have speed. Burrow not researched yet. Missile attack's about to finish, but this is a very dangerous force. 180 supply to 152. 5,100 army supply to just 4,000 of the Zerg player. And even though he is on creep, I don't think he has enough units to hold this off. The tank fires are going to have to be really good. Here comes the Zerg from all positions right now, and he's able to get off all the tanks. The Marines are lagging behind, but he finally does bring them forward, but at what cost? He ended up losing every single one of his tanks. And it looks like Mystery is going to be able to barely clean this up thanks to that good positioning. of his Roaches and his Zerglings. Coming in from behind as well was his Mutalisks, and now the supplies has evened up. 128 supply for the Terran to 131. Mystery actually taking a supply lead.
On a bright side for our Zerg player, or for our Terran player, is that even though he lost all of his tanks, he did deny that 4th base, so he needed to do. So our 2 players are on par on bases right now. Actually, our Terran, his 4th is now done, so he's going to go over and take the gas and start mining from it. So he's actually ahead on the bases right now, and he's attempting to tell run by, but he gets caught by Eldings.
Yeah, the excellent creep spread of Mystery is really showing why creep spread is so significant going into the late game. Just pouring creep everywhere else on the map, was able to catch those Hellions very easily. Basically spotted them before the Terran player even realized he was on creep, and unfortunately for King Kong, he did not repair that turret, and this is going to do a lot of economic damage because the units are a little bit too far away from the Mutalisks, and finally makes those Mutalisks run away. 9 kills total by the Zerg. Runs into a few turrets, but he's transitioning into Ultralisks, and his upgrades are just phenomenal.
Yeah, our Zerg player really showing that he's on top of his macro game, and his upgrades are going to be, they're getting up there. I'm not sure what our Terran player is. He's only on 1-1, whereas Herd player is approaching his 3-3 crackling Ultralist timing, or even composition. Banelings are being popped now, and our Terran player is on creep. He's going to go over deny the 5th or the 4th, or whatever you want to call it now. But this has the potential to do good damage if he splits well and he doesn't lose his tanks. He cannot afford to lose those tanks right now because those are the only things that are going to be able to take out these Ultralisks. Oh, and there's going to be a great surround on all these Marines. Good Baneling, he's going to lose them all. Only a few got away in the medevacs. He's going to lose all these tanks who weren't even sieged up through all that. So Mystery playing very well, but the supplies are still relatively even.
Now, one thing to note is Mystery's upgrades have been pretty standard this game, but the Terran player is still sitting at 1-1, and he has not built an armory this entire game. I think he actually has one finally now, but he's definitely not using it because he's not researching 2-2, and this is getting a little bit ridiculous. I mean, he had a supply lead by about 30 going into attack where he completely messed up the split, leaving his tanks completely naked to just a handful of Roaches and Lings, and not defending them against the Mutalisks that flew over them really late into the fight. And he's really going to have to get lucky with this drop here, because if this economic damage does not work out, there's no way he's going to be able to fight a fully upgraded Zerg army with just 1-1 on his bio right now. Does able to get all those units out on the field thanks to the medevac boost, but the entire Zerg force is coming right now, including the Mutalisks. He's going to have to get out of there, or he's going to end up losing this portion of his army, and everything that he loses right now is so important, considering he's quite significantly behind in upgrades and army value. 179 supply to 159, and the Terran player has a ton of minerals banked, but every Marine he produces right now that's not 3-3 upgraded just feels like a complete waste.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm going to say right here is that he has all these barracks, but 6 of them don't even have attachments, no tech lab, no reactor. It's like he sees these Ultralisks. He needs to get Marauders out to complement this Marine composition that he has. 2-2 is only halfway done, and this is just not looking well for our Terran player at all.
Well, 2 spores right here. If King Kong doesn't pay attention, he actually is going to end up losing there. An Infestor popping out from that base location, and he's going to finally find a little spot that he can drop, but unfortunately for him, Mystery's amazing creep spread sees it as well, and he's going to be able to respond to that pretty significantly. And it looks like King Kong is going to take this opportunity to finally move out, and I feel like this is going to be the last engagement of the game. Still only 1-1 upgraded. Maybe if he delays long enough that this attack will be 2-2, but 2-2 against 3-5 Ultralisk is definitely not what you want, especially because he only has 2 Marauders on this army, and he's completely engulfed in creep right now. Here comes Mystery, a little bit of a misstep there streaming in, but he has a ton of units that he's able to waste a lot of them. The tanks are open again, the tanks are completely naked, and Mystery is just going to basically roll over this army. 197 supply to 136. Mystery's army composition is just too powerful right now.
Yeah, like you were saying, I'm also starting to think that this was the last engagement of the game, but our Terran player has those bunkers, and he's going to fill them up. He's going to do his best to try and hold, but he's not going to be able to take his 5th base, and this Zerg army is going to roll right into his 4th and kill all of his SCVs, which is not what he wants right now. He cannot afford to lose any more economic, any kind of economic boost that he might have had. However, that
King
is a
Kong does have a
planetary
planetary.
fortress. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it looks like Mystery is just going to back off, but I think at this point, if he wanted, he could just flat out attack the Terran straight into his army. And those Mutalisks that somehow Mystery was able to retain throughout the entire game, 22 minutes now, actually coming into use, able to deny that floating command center. And his creep is extended basically to the Terran's base right now, so it's going to be extremely difficult for King Kong to move out. It looks like he's gearing up for another move out. He's finally maxed again, 200 supply, but
But there
still
isn't.
not 3-3. He is only 2-2, and already a pre-split by Mystery. And oh man, this is going to be so bad for King Kong. He's finally backing off the tanks. He only has 2 tanks, and they are not sieged. Here comes a huge number of fully upgraded Ultralisks, and even though they're in a really bad choke, actually, putting down those infested swarm eggs there, really blocking off those Ultralisks, but will it really matter? 161 supply to 196. And he's actually going to be dropping in every base location, but unfortunately for him, the hatchery in the main base is just a hatchery. It's not even the hive, so... And it looks like King Kong is going to be able to finally clean up the base that he tried to drop ever so hard, but 196 supply to 137, and the economy of King Kong is just absolutely terrible right now. The only force he actually has is right now in the main base of the Zerg player, who is building 5 Ultralisks behind this and knows exactly where the units are. And this might be the final blow. If he loses both these medevacs, he basically has no army, and he's sitting in his natural second base while his third base and last fully mining base gets taken down by a huge fully upgraded Zerg army.
Yeah, so losing, he's going to be, like I said, oh, but he got those 2 medevacs that he'd just been full of units that was going to drop. Got caught by those infections. Good job by Mystery catching those medevacs with good fungal growths. So, good game, and our Zerg player is taking this right now 3-1. So, he's doing a fantastic job. And while we wait, I'm going to put on a little more music just to fill the time.
Okay, game number 5, spawning in the top right from Team SCA. He has a lot of work ahead of him to win the $50 because he is down 3-1 in a best-of-7 series. It is King Kong, and Mystery has paused the game. This is definitely the wrong version of the map. Yeah. It's not the right version.
Yep, not the right version.
Right, and this is still not the right version.
what is this?
Who hosted?
I think it's been King Kong.
Interesting.
Two times in a row, that's kind of weird.
Alright, proper version, finally. Spawning in the bottom right hand corner from Team CGAC, he's up 3-1. One game away from winning the $50 show match. It is Mystery. And his opponent, a lot of work ahead of him, from Team SCA, King Kong in the top left, playing as Terran on Acheron Waste. Oh yeah. Players just solidifying that the score is definitely in favor of Mystery. King Kong going into Sad Panda mode, as he should. Because you definitely shouldn't lose as Terran, ever. But that's just my opinion.
Well, we all know your opinion of Terra and how they are currently the most overpowered race in the game at the moment. But getting back to the game, we're going to have we might be having our last match of the evening in this $50 show match. I'm really hoping that King Kong really pulls something off and he comes back into this. I really want to see some good play from our Terran player that's not just holding off an all-in. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking an all-in, or are you thinking, what do you think is going to come out of our Terran player this game?
Well, it looks like he's gearing up to do the same build as he did in the first two games, just building that Racks and Supply Depot really close to the initial command center. So I am going to expect him to be putting down that refinery at about 14 or 15 supply. Or maybe he might mix it up and end up going 2 refineries as well, which definitely can work on a map like this. You can do some one-base crazy cheeses with maybe some Hellion, Widow Mine, or Hellbat drops, but as is, it looks like he's opting just to build the initial refinery. And as we've seen in the past, he really doesn't like opening Reapers, so, you know, maybe he's just kind of feeling the heat of this series, going back to what he's used to doing, which he actually did 2 games in a row at the beginning, and ended up winning the first game, so. Mystery now, following the hatch first with a very odd opening. He actually placed down his extractor and his spawning pool at the exact same time, which does kind of mess up your economy just because you do have to pump out that first overlord at 17 supply, but that could be indicative of a early game aggression. I mean, there's no real reason to place down both facilities at the same time, so.
So we're going to see King Kong setting out his first Marine out, then see if he can pick off an early overlord. He's been trying to do the last few games. But I don't think he's going to get that one going over to his third. It's not going to, or that fourth, or whichever you want to call it. I don't think he's going to be able to even see that. I don't think he might see it, but he's not going. He's definitely not going to get the kill on it since it is already in the void space. So we did see him gain to go for the one rack with gas expand. So, but he has his reactor on the way, but he didn't go for the Reaper. I mean, on this map, there's only it is a 2-player map, like everyone knows, I think Reapers would have been the smarter choice because that way you get that scouting information, and he would have seen like he might seen if there was anything going on. I don't think our tournament player has deigned to even scout once in this whole series, except when he got a really good scout on a Roach Warren in the third game. So,
and it looks like Mystery here is just setting up these early 2 lings like he always does, just to make sure no weird shenanigans happens. But that Overlord really did kind of tell him what was going on. 2 Marines this early is actually very odd, especially because most players who open racks first, who do get the initial 2 Marines, end up going CC first instead of racks first. So he should know that this is the exact same build that he did face early on in this series. And look at this King Kong actually clearing his third base rocks extremely early. And this probably means he's going to go into a third really quickly, because if he doesn't, he essentially allows the Zerg player to attack him from 2 locations. So that's a little bit odd. And look at this, going into the same build that he did in Game 1, 2, and I think in Game 3 as well. No, never mind, just Game 1 and 2. So Mystery playing exactly the same way as he always does, playing super standard. The only variation is, will he go defensive roaches or not? But he did do it last game and transitioned back into Muta, so I do feel like that's just what he's comfortable with. So definitely would not be surprised if he just dropped down a Roach Warren randomly before he went into layer tech.
right, but then again, I also have to say, if our Terran player is going to go and clear those rocks and try and take a faster third, that just makes him all the more vulnerable, even though he's going into the, this Hellbat drop, which he very much enjoys. He didn't even kill that Ling, which is going to see the natural, might even kill a Mule, which is kind of significant this early, since Mules, as we all know, are pretty overpowered.
And it looks like the very standard Hellbat drop that he did in Game 1 and 2 is going to commence, building 2 Hellbats and a medevac right now. And he has not dropped a 3rd CC, and he additionally built the 2 Widow Mines that he always does. So seems like this is his go-to build, and the build that he did initially last game with the Blue Flames back into bio is just kind of a change-up, because he wasn't really winning with what he was comfortable with. But he is back to what he knows, and it looks like the Zerg is going to be going purely Lings and Banelings with double upgrades into a very late layer, actually, and possibly back into Mutalisks. But he has scouted every single tech path of the Terran army. He sees the Marines, he sees the Hellbats, he sees the Widow Mines, and he might even have seen the medevac. So he's going to be able to produce a ton of units right now to defend. And even though Hellbats are really good against Lings, he really doesn't have that many, so it should be just fine.
Right, but this creep spread, as we've been saying this whole series, is just amazing from our Zerg player. It's already almost out to the middle of the map by now, and he's going to see that this pressure is here. He's going to set up those. Our Terran players are going to set up those mines. These Hellbats are going to hopefully. He picked them up, and they're not even going to soak the damage to these Marines. He just lost all his Marines to those Banelings when he should have just let the Hellbats soak them.
And now 30 Lings are being produced. A few reinforcements that are Hellbats, but like you said, he was able to clean up all of the Marines because he lifted the Hellbats, getting a little bit too eager to do the Hellbat drop there. I think he forgot that he was actually on creep, so everything that he did, the Zerg player was able to see. And he's really going to have to hope for amazing mind hands. Look at this Mystery actually trying to dive for possibly the 3rd base location. If he goes there, he's definitely going to get it. So excellent decision making here by the Zerg player. And oh, nope, he ended up going into the main. Nope, he does see it. Oh, is it going to finish? This would be really annoying for King Kong, but no, he does successfully finish this and decides to morph it in, but not too bad of a decision. Actually, definitely a bad decision now. He's going to take significant damage on this base, and at what costs? I mean, he was able to kill off 3 workers, but his 3rd base actually might get denied here. What is he doing? Lift the 3rd base, King Kong. Oh boy, and he does lift it, but it is burning, so he's going to have to rush SCVs over there as soon as possible.
Right, like you were saying, like our Terran player here almost lost his 3rd base, didn't kill nearly enough drones, didn't even deny the 3rd, and he lost his whole army. And he's not trading efficiently. His whole match we've been seeing is that our Terran player hasn't been playing as efficient as he could. These mine hits, though, these 2 mines might get a good hit on that huge Ling clump right there if he's not paying attention, but I don't know. But he is trying to bait them with the medevacs, but it doesn't look like he's going to go for it. I really want to see those mines kill something because they're just sitting there.
It looks like Mystery does know that they were there. He was able to see them mine. Burrow initially, thanks to his excellent creep spread, but he's actually not building an Overseer, and he does have a layer, so a little bit of an odd decision, but it's not really going to be too much of a detriment unless, obviously, all of those Lings just walk a little bit forward towards there, and he actually is going to activate both mines right now, so now he knows for sure that they are there. Instantly morphs an Overseer, and the Terran player has finally solidified a third base, something that he's had such trouble doing throughout the series.
Right, and our Zerg player also going to go take his fourth, but something to note is that we're approaching out to the 12.5-minute mark, and our Zerg player has yet to throw down his Spire, like we've been seeing the rest of the series. He's always gone for the Spire. He's always been going into that mute account, But right now we're just seeing Ling Bane against Marine Hellbat, which I'm not seeing as the go-to choice for our Zerg player. You'd think he'd be going into that either Roach or he'd be going into Spire or something, but he's sticking with this Ling Bane. Even as effective as it's been through the series with the poor micro of our Terran player, it's just he needs something a little more beefier than Lings and Banes if he's playing against a higher Hellbat count.
Mystery just kind of just fooling around this game. I think he knows that he's generally a little bit more better at macro games than his opponent, just basically going into what Stefano used to do when he used to dick around on ladder, and he's just going to mass a ton of Speedlings and Banelings. I'm assuming he's just going to go to Hive just to get 3-3, and you know what, at this rate, it looks like he's probably going to just take the game. I don't think this Terran player really recognizes what's going on right now, and there is so many units out in the field, and Mystery doesn't have a very good unit composition, but he's slowly making this Terran player feel so uncomfortable, just sending his Lings everywhere, and you can just see King Kong is really affected by these small little attacks. Here comes a big engagement, but the macro of the Zerg player is just too strong right now, able to kill off absolutely everything. Even with a superior unit composition, King Kong is definitely slowly being whittled away, not taking his additional gases at the third base location, sitting on just 56 workers, not building additional SCVs, and I feel like he's just given up right now, and this is actually really funny by Mystery, getting that infestation pit just to go to Hive to get additional upgrades, and just having a lot of fun because he knows that he definitely has this series in the bag. And that is a lot of Banelings. It's going to be 85 Lings on the field, 35 Banelings with a few more in production. The Terran player definitely has a supply lead, but the army value is not too far behind. It's actually significantly ahead by the Zerg because he has nothing but 2 supply units, and a little bit of a mix-up there, but he does make the Terran player lift off his command center, and here comes the multi-prong attack. A ton of Banelings actually catch all of the transferring SCVs, and they're going to kill off everything at the second base. 35 workers to 58 drones, and the Terran player dropping here, but his upgrades are just not good enough to deal with any of these Lings, lifting off a little bit late, and he does have a supply lead, but once again, Mystery just outplaying his opponent with a really silly unit composition, but it is definitely working because he is definitely outplaying King Kong right now.
Yeah, and I'll say right now is that I think King Kong, instead of going for that Hellbat, I think he should have just stayed with the Marine Mine, even add a second factory to add those mines to the composition. Like what he needs right now is mines because he doesn't have anything else except Lings and Banes killing him right now. I think mines would be a huge improvement for what he has right now. To the viewer, Virium, the score right now is 1-3 in favor of Mystery.
King Kong just absolutely falling apart. Almost 100 Lings on the field right now with 16 Banelings going to tier 3 to get 3-3 upgrade, and the unit composition of King Kong is way superior, but just not splitting his units up, and I feel like if this comes to this huge engagement, no matter how powerful Bioforce is against Zerg, it really does come down to just one huge mistake. I mean, the difference between an MVP or a Ryung or an Innovation holding a 200 against 200 fight against nothing but Lings and Banelings is basically the split. So even if he has the superior upgrades, even if he has the superior army composition, if he doesn't look at his army and split, he's definitely going to lose this really silly strategy. And it looks like Mystery kind of feels like he can't really end the game. He has been sitting on 3 base for an extremely long time right now, and he is going into Infestors and Ultralist tech, but will it be in time? Will King Kong be able to stabilize and fend off this really silly strat?
Well, who knows? All we know is that there are a lot of Lings, a lot of Banelings, and Ultralisks are on the way. Our Terran player is in the middle of the map, denying creep, and some good Baneling hits, killing about 10 Marines and a Hellbat at the Terran's third base. So like you said, I think he's playing a bit sillier than what he should be. It might come back and bite him in the ass, but we have a Doom Drop, which is perfectly scouted by the army, just sitting there in the middle of the map. He's gonna come over to the third base or the fourth base or even the freaking main base right now at this point. But he's gonna drop it right at the third base, and there are Banelings there. If he gets some good hits, that crippled his army. He lost a good portion of it, but not enough. And right now it's looking pretty good for King Kong because there are only Zerglings. There are no more Banelings to have to deal with.
Unfortunately for Mystery, he's been stuck on 3 base for 19 minutes into the game now, desperately trying to mine long distance here, and 152 supply to 127. He is going into Ultralist production, but did this unit composition come to bite him in the ass? Did he fool around just a little bit too much? Because the Terran player now has a planetary fortress at his 4th base location, has amazing production, a 50 supply lead, and his attack right now is still ongoing, so definitely looking grim for Mystery right now. Here comes an additional little drop. There's absolutely no meters on the field, so he's going to be able to abuse that fact. And it looks like he's just preoccupying Mystery while he builds up a huge force. Definitely going to be able to max fairly soon with this excellent production. Every single one of his Raxes has an add-on in it. He's building Medivacs, he's building Marauders. He's almost 3-3. And he is ahead significantly in supply.
And he's going to keep killing those Overlords over there. And as you can see, there aren't that many Overlords on the field. He keeps killing them. He might supply block the Zerg.
And it looks like King Kong actually was able to deny the additional attempt of taking a 4th base here by Mystery by killing off the drone. And that's really going to stifle his economy. He does not even have enough minerals to build a hatchery, and he has to defend a ton of drops. And each one of these drops are extremely more cost efficient for King Kong than they are for Mystery. And he is in so much trouble now. 174 supply to 98, and the army value is practically double here for the Terran player.
But as we saw,
he's finally going to move out.
As we saw, is that our Terran player, his micro wasn't too good. But there are infestors on the field, so if he gets some really good fungals, these Ultralisks might be able to clean up this attack coming in, which is just purely bio.
Finally cleans up every single one of the drops. The only Marines in his base are ones of his own. But the final push is commencing. 165 supply of everything bio against just a handful of Ultralisks. Absolutely no economy behind this, and no infestation pit to remake any of the infestors that he's going to lose. He is on creep, but he's already predeterminedly splitting, and that's going to be it. 3-2 now is the lead for Mystery.
Good job by King Kong pulling it back and pulling the series a little bit closer to him, up to 2-3 now, still in favor of our Zerg player. So, I wonder if he'll be able to pull off, a miraculous recovery.
Looks like King Kong is just going to the bathroom. He should be back soon. All right, he's back. All right, 3-2 lead for CGAC's player Mystery, spawning in the top right. And I believe this map is cross-spawn now, so SCA's King Kong will be spawning in the bottom left-hand corner. It looks like there's a little bit of mouse issues. You definitely need your mouse to play StarCraft. I've tried to play it without it. It doesn't work out too well.
I wonder how that would work out. I wonder if you could actually play without a mouse. I mean, maybe?
Oh, it's possible. It's like other things in life.
Anything's possible.
Skinny dipping without water is definitely possible. Very deadly, though.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention detrimental to any kind of reputation you might have had.
Okay, SCA King Kong. Not choosing Star Station, this was the Zerg's pick, but I don't think these players are really putting too much thought into it. They're just playing to have a little bit of fun. And Mystery, not sure where he's sending that overload. It looks like it is going to be in the right location. Yes, definitely is. So he does know that this is going to be a forced cross position, which definitely isn't too common in all the tournaments. I actually watched Pro League the other day, and they spawned on the same side of the map. Not sure why they haven't adopted this, but it does make for better games. Especially because there is this Zelnaga tower that, if you are spawning in these two locations, basically tells you where your opponent is. It's a little bit silly, but as is, it looks like Mystery is gearing up to do a very standard 15-hatch opening. Look for him to be placing down his extractor and his pool down to get that early speed. And his opponent King Kong, this time going for another CC opening, most likely at 14. And every time he's done CC opening, he's gone into 2 factories. So we'll have to see if the Zerg player wants to punish that like he did the first time King Kong ended up doing that strategy. And it ended up not being too good of a build for King Kong, because unfortunately for him, Mystery did follow that up with a Roach Bust, which did so much damage in the early stages of the game. Here comes the 14 hatch. It's going to be followed up with a 14 CC on the low ground by King Kong.
But I can't help but feel that this is really risky by a Terran player. And he could be metaing, assuming that, our Zerg player could be going for the 15 hatch. Like I've been saying, he has not gone for any kind of scouting information at all. For all we know, Mystery might have pulled, an Hydra and go ahead and 6 pull, like he does occasionally. So it's kind of risky to put it on the low ground, not even go for the wall. He kind of meta here, kind of metaing his opponent. So kind of odd.
Looks like King Kong has opted to build a very early refinery with a barracks. This is about the same time he decided to put his second refinery, and that's exactly what he's going to end up doing. So this looks like it's going to be his double factory opening into Blue Flame Hellions, into Bio. A little bit of a crazy transition there, and Mystery now is going to be closely reaching that 100 gas mark. We're having to see if he wants to pull off of the extractor or continue to mine gas and do some type of early aggression, which we have seen in the past works exceptionally well against this opening by King Kong.
I can't help but feel I want to watch a game of mech versus our Zerg player. However, the new mech in Heart of the Swarm, in my opinion, is kind of lesser than the Bio, because with the new Vipers, your siege tanks, anything you might have, is basically useless with these new Vipers. They can abduct your tanks, and they can reduce the range on your tanks to nothing, so they can't even shoot at what's coming at you. So I feel that Bio is the more preferred play against the new Zerg and Heart of the Swarm, just because of Vipers alone, and you could get...
Vipers can be countered by Vikings.
But in the time for those Vikings to kill those Vipers, they can still get a good couple blinding snares.
I think it takes like 4 shots of a Viking to kill a Viper.
Really?
Literally. Yes. Okay, so 2 factory opening here from King Kong. He's going to be going into blue flame like he always does, and look at this. Mystery has not opted to do that roach aggression. Really hope that he would so that this series would just end. But he is going to be macroing pretty much exactly how he's been doing the entire series. Most likely going to be gearing up for a second extractor right about now. Setting up for that third queen to get that creep spread out as much as possible. Even building a fourth queen off of this one hatchery. So definitely a very important map to get this creep spread out, especially if you can get it out on this side of the map. You can basically see if anything is coming your way. Just by placing overloads in the top here, you'll be completely safe from drops so long as you're looking at your minimap. And here comes the first initial Ling scout. It's actually going to deny King Kong his first scout, doing it a little bit late, especially because Mystery has always opted to get that early speed. And a starport going down here as well, so last time he actually didn't do this into Blue Flame Hellion drops. He did this into a Banshee, and that looks like what he's gearing up to do once again, building 2 tech labs here. One for one of his factories to build Blue Flame Hellions, and the other for his Banshee production, so he did end up doing this against Mystery, and it did not work out too well. He ended up going into the later stages of the game playing Tank Bio, but he was on 1-1 until about 18 minutes into the game, while Mystery was just playing standard and getting those double upgrades, which he is opting to do now as well. So I hope that King Kong is able to do something more with these Blue Flame Hellions than he did in that game, because he definitely does not put enough emphasis on upgrades, and that definitely is not going to work against the style of play of Mystery.
Right, those queens actually did do a good amount of damage on one of the Hellions there. And the Overlord here does see that it is going to be Blue Flame with Banshee. So he is going to, I would assume he's going to react appropriately. He's putting down a few Spore Crawlers at his bases to stop the Banshees. But he's not making that critical amount of Lings that he had last time, which means that these Hellions that he has right now has the potential to do a lot more damage than what our Zerg player wants.
The Banshee not really timed out too well here. It's actually not going to reach the Zerg's base until almost 10 minutes, and that's going to give Mystery enough time to respond by building Banelings and possibly additional queens. But his creep spread is just absolutely amazing, and he does have additional queens. I don't think this is going to do anything at all, especially if King Kong goes into the third base location choke. And here comes the first initial attack. Blue Flame is finally finished, and that is a lot of Hellions. He's going to be able to clean off these queens no problem. And Mystery actually is going to have to get a very lucky surround right now, because if he loses all of these queens, he has no defense against the incoming Banshee in the middle of the map. But wow, a little bit chicken by King Kong, actually opting to back off and really backing off against nothing. There's nothing really to fear at this point, but here he goes additionally, and he's actually in a terrible location.
Oh my
what
god.
a bad turn of events.
I don't even know what to say about that.
And it looks like Mystery is going into Spiral once again, working out to saturate his third base location, building 10 drones behind this, getting his double upgrades, getting that burrow upgrade as well. And look at this, still no upgrades from the Terran player. He's going into the exact same style as he did earlier, and you cannot play this style against Zerg, who goes Ling, Bling, Muta without upgrades. It's 10 minutes, 15 seconds into the game. Finally puts down his 2 engineering bays. This time he placed down an armory, which is a little bit funny because that was something he was really lacking in the other games, but no real reason to place it down now because he hasn't even started 1-1.
He might actually be going for his mech upgrades. He might be going into either a really large Hellbat time, he might be going into like the tanks, or even Thors he might be going into, you know. With that earlier army, he might be able to get an earlier +1.
No, I'm pretty sure he's just going into bio. He's adding his additional Raxes, going up to just 4 right now, trying to put on add-ons for all of them, and the Zerg player just having a really easy time saturating his bases, hitting 67 workers right now, getting another amazing surround on these Hellions. Oh man, he needs to really stop doing this. 4 Mutalisks out on the way, a little bit supply blocked, but not to worry, his economy is booming right now. The Zerg player pretty much safe from drops thanks to that early scout on the Banshee, is able to predeterminedly build spores in all base locations, covers this upper area, and has excellent creep spread going on to the bottom side of the map. And King Kong is basically stuck, just sitting on 3 base right now, giving the Zerg player the opportunity to macro to his fullest potential.
However, they are on equal bases, which isn't what you want to be on as a Zerg player, especially at 12 minutes. You don't want to be on equal bases as your Terran player, as the Terran player, who is going into his he is hitting his macro stride as well. Minus the upgrades, which he is going to be a little bit behind on. He's going to have 1-1 by the time Zerg has 2-2, which isn't that bad considering his 3-3 might be a lot sooner than the Zerg's because he has to go up into Lair, and his Infestor Pit is just not finishing soon, or is it done now? Something like that. But he needs to go up into that high tech to be able to start his 3-3.
And the Terran player hitting that 138 supply while the Zerg barely catching up 132 of his own. He's getting drilling claws, going into purely Marines with Widow Mines and Medivacs. And he's actually going to be moving out here at 151 supply, and this is a very dangerous timing for him. His upgrades are not complete yet. The Zerg's 2-2 is about to finish, so this upgrade lead is really going to be significant in this upcoming fight. The only thing King Kong has for him is the creep spread, which has been amazing this entire series, is a little bit lacking on the left side of the map, so he might not be able to say it, and just as I say that, the Mutalisk's in a perfect position. He knows the army is here. He's going to be a little bit careful because there are Widow Mines there, but he's going to be just fine, and this should be a fairly easy cleanup. Here comes the Zerg, splitting his units just in case the Widow Mines were there, and oh, the Widow Mines actually ends up taking everything that King Kong had on the map. 141 supply to 135, still in the head for King Kong, but he's going to end up losing a lot of that right here, and ooh, here comes a nice Widow Mine hit, but unfortunately for him, it doesn't do full damage as splash, so he wasn't able to kill more than just one Mutalisk.
Yeah, so our Terran player is going to continue going into that Marine Mine, adding a few Marauders in to deal with these Banelings, try and mitigate the damage a bit. But there are a lot of Mutalisks out on the field right now, and he just does. I don't know. Does he have turrets in his base yet? If this third player wants to mess around with the high number of Mutalisks he has.
And it looks like King Kong is moving out again, just non-stop aggression. This seems like the way he wants to transition from his double factory opening, and every single time he does that, it seems that his army just keeps getting smaller and smaller. The Ultralisk Cavern is down. A ton of Banelings and Zerglings are out on the map. 164 to 168 supply, but the majority of the Terran force is not here right now. And the majority of the Terran force once again gets cleaned up before he's in a position to split. And he's going to be easily cleaned up right now. Here comes the Mutalisk cleaning up a bunch of the units. Burrowed Banelings in excellent positions. The creep spread is just outstanding. 151 supply to 138. The Zerg is now saturating his fourth base and denying the fourth base of the Terran while successfully teching up to Ultralisks.
So Mystery really showing us he's not a Zerg to be trifled with, not to be taken lightly, and he wants to take the series now after a little bit of an embarrassment from last game when he was messing around a little too much, coming back to bite him in the ass. So he's really going to show us that he wants to end this now. He's going up into this Ultralisk tech. He's going to have Ultralisks around the 17.5 minute mark, where our Terran player is only beyond Marine Mine and a little bit of Marauders, but that's not what you want to be against Ultralisk. As we've been saying, you need to get those Marauders. You need to get Thors. You need to get something. You gotta get some big with hit points to kill these. Absorb Banelings and still kill these Ultralisks because his splitting has not been up to par.
And it looks like both armies are going to be maxed by the time the Zerg decides he wants to attack. And unfortunately for King Kong, he's going to have so much trouble defending these base locations because the Lings are so heavily upgraded compared to his Bioforce, which just barely hit 2-2. And here comes a huge attack by Mystery. Very odd that he chose to do that, but the supply is still in his favor, 171 to 155 supply, and he successfully denies the base once again, making use of his Mutalisks, even though he's transitioning into Ultralisks. And now the Terran player is on barely 2.5 bases. Wow, the command center actually ends up dying. All the mines are right under the Zerg's foot, but he has absolutely no clue that they are there, but he moves out just in time. And here comes a huge attack onto the absolutely most important base of King Kong. The bunker goes down immediately. There are basically just a handful of units at the top side here with one turret, and he has been forced to abandon his third base location while attacking the Zerg's fourth base and main base at the same time. But it is 184 supply to 160, and judging from how this went in the last time that King Kong decided to do this strategy, I think the Zerg will just end up coming out on top. Doing a really good job actually here, just denying all the mining, but wow, if he actually gets the spawning pool, this is definitely going to be worth it. 162 supply to 152 supply. Both bases of the Terran have been killed, and he's going to have to rebuild them, but once the Zerg is able to kill off this tiny force in his main base, I think he's going to be able to just stabilize.
Yeah, but
And he fine.
like you said, our Zerg player did lose his. Looks like our Terran's gonna go all in here with just SCVs, and he can't. Our Zerg player can't even reproduce Zerglings because he doesn't have a spawning pool. He's gonna have to rely on these Ultralisk and any Banelings he might be able to make. He's morphing into 8 Banelings to deal with this, but this army composition right now is just mostly SCVs.
Yeah, it is. It looks way stronger than it actually is, and I think he's doing the right thing here by backing off, because if he actually attacked the Zerg player, 2 Banelings would have just decimated about a quarter of his army instantly. And he's basically struggling in economy right now. He had to wait to produce the additional 3rd base, and that's not even the base he wants to retake. He wants to be mining off of 4 bases right now, but both of them was denied. And he does actually scan, not sure where. It looks like it's going to be just in front, actually, to deny the creep, which has been absolutely so significant in this series so far. But the Zerg player is about to max. His army supply is at 6250. The Terran's army supply is at 3750. That's something you want at about the 9-minute mark of the game. And it looks like he's finally going to move out. The entire army of the Terran force is clumped. Will he be able to react in time, or will this just be a complete decimation?
I don't know. He is yet to rebuild that spawning pool. He hasn't been making any more lings, but he's been at 202. He's basically maxed out on his supply. But then again, our Terran player sorely lacking the units, just mostly SCVs right now. We're gonna have to see if he can pull off some great splits here. But that Zerg army with those infestors is looking pretty terrifying. Some good fungals. He might not be able to last very long. But there are a lot of mines here on the field.
Now that a bunch of those SCVs has been killed off, we really see the significant difference in food count. 200 supply with a huge bank and additional bases against just 146 of the Terran army. And the Terran force is not even 3-3 in upgrades. It looks like Mystery is just going to take it easy right now. He wants to make sure this is a 100% win, but definitely should be attacking into this force that is significantly smaller than what he has. And here he comes out on the map once again. Will he decide to go for an attack? And it looks like he will. And he's actually going at the correct location right now. The Terran's force is completely out of position. And the majority of his forces is actually mines. So if they're not burrowed by the time they get fungled, King Kong is going to be in so much trouble. And here comes the engagement. A large portion of the mines cannot burrow. And that's going to be it, folks. 199 supply against a dropping Terran force towards 0. And congratulations to CGAC's Mystery winning the show match 4-2 against King Kong.
Congratulations to Mystery for also winning $50 from Team Starcraft Ascension. We're playing a magnificent series against the Terran player. So, recapping, we're going to say that our Zerg player was able to play some very strong macro games, even though his initial game was a little bit cheesy and it did not work out very well for him. But he brought it back, he actually came back, and he showed us fantastic games. SHOWMATCH or King Kong playing to his best, but not up to par with Mystery.
Alright, that's it for me. I'm going to head out.
See you later. Thank you, Regret, and make sure all the followers, make sure everyone who's watching follow me here on Twitch.
No, don't worry about it. I don't have Twitch. I have nothing. Who cares? Okay, see you guys.
Okay, so there goes Regret. So thank you all for watching. Make sure you follow me here on Twitch and support me. And congratulations.